My name was Ahmed. I was a police detective in Saudi Arabia, a seeker of justice in a realm where blind obedience reigned supreme. Everyone knew my name. I was respected, even revered, a bastion of faith in a world steeped in tradition. But beneath the facade of authority, a tempest brewed within me, a void that whispered troubling questions into my soul. As I navigated a life suffocated by dogma, I began to feel the suffocating weight of unspoken doubts press against my spirit. Then came the moment that forever altered my existence. During an interrogation, when the air was thick with tension, I encountered something supernatural, a divine light cutting through the darkness of my doubt. In that instance, I left my body. No longer was I Ahmed, the devout Muslim detective. I stood in a boundless desert, stripped of my earthly identity, confronted by the figure of Jesus, illuminating the stark emptiness around me. He called out my name, revealing truths that shook the very foundations of my being. "Why do you cling to the shadows?" His voice resonated like thunder in a silent night. He unveiled not only my personal conflict, but the greater spiritual warfare raging unseen, influencing our world, our decisions, our faith. It was a revelation too profound to process, yet it ignited a fierce urgency within me. I realized I had been walking a path of compliance, not faith, and my heart began to tremble with the weight of this newfound truth. Returning to life, I was thrust back into a turbulent reality. I was branded a traitor by those I once served, a threat to a world that feared the light. My family turned their backs and my community shunned me. Yet the voice of Jesus echoed within my soul, compelling me to seek the truth at all costs. It became clear. My journey was not merely about personal salvation, but a mission to expose the spiritual deception woven into the fabric of our very society. I embarked on a clandestine search for enlightenment, discovering the scriptures that spoke of grace and love, stumbling upon others like myself, lost souls yearning for the light. We united in our quest, bound together by a common truth. Despite living under the constant threat of exposure and reprisal, I felt an unyielding call to share this revelation, to break the silence and invite others to join this awakening, for there are many still trapped in darkness. As you listen to my story, I invite you to reflect on your own journey. Where are you watching from? What truths have you uncovered? Leave a comment below. Your voice matters. And if you love Jesus, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. With your support, we can shine light on the shadows together, revealing the spiritual battles that shape our lives and our world. The revelation is only beginning. In a conservative neighborhood in Saudi Arabia, the air is thick with tradition and the weight of expectation. As a police detective, I upheld the law with a fervor that mirrored the devout nature of my upbringing. The community I served revered strict religious observance, shunning any form of questioning or dissent. Yet, deep within, I often battled a silent storm, a curiosity that felt dangerous in a society where conformity was prized above all. I conducted interrogations with precision, each case reminding me of the unyielding truths that governed our lives. But there were also whispers of deeper truths that tugged at my soul. One evening, I found myself in the midst of an interrogation when everything changed. The atmosphere was charged, the tension palpable as I faced a suspect with a hardened demeanor. As I pressed for answers, an unsettling feeling washed over me. In that moment, I felt a sudden darkness enveloping the room, where my surroundings faded into a blur. Then, like a beacon piercing through the void, a figure emerged. It was Jesus. His presence was radiant, flooding the dimly lit room with an illuminating grace. I was transfixed, unable to take my eyes off him as he called my name softly, a gentle nudge that felt as though it reached beyond time and space. In that surreal encounter, Jesus began to unveil profound revelations that shook the very foundations of my beliefs. I felt the walls of deception crumble around me as he illuminated the hidden agenda that propelled the elite, how they manipulated our faith, sowing division and keeping the masses compliant. I saw glimpses of those in positions of power wielding religion as a weapon against their fellow humans, perpetuating a cycle of fear and mistrust. It was a shocking revelation, one that tore at my understanding of faith and community, and I began to grasp the reality of the spiritual war that raged within and around us. As Jesus illuminated the truth, I found myself grappling with the implications of what I was learning. He spoke of love and unity, urging me to rise above the manipulation that had long dominated my life. I understood that to truly follow him was to embrace authenticity, to pursue spiritual freedom, and empower others to break free from their chains. As the visions unfolded, I recognized the urgency of my mission, to awaken my community to the deception woven into the very fabric of our lives. I felt the conviction deep in my bones that my role was not just to enforce the law, but to share the truth I had found, even if it meant putting everything on the line. When I finally came to my senses in that interrogation room, the immediate reality of my situation crashed over me like icy water. The suspect still sat across from me, seemingly unchanged, yet everything had shifted within. I was left with the overwhelming weight of what I had just experienced. I needed to process this astonishing revelation, to understand how to integrate it into my life moving forward, while navigating the expectations that loomed over me. The fear of alienation and ridicule tugged at my heart, whispering doubts about my sanity. Yet, even amidst that turmoil, a burgeoning hope flickered within me, the hope that others could also awaken to the truth and find liberation. Determined to explore this new pathway, I began seeking out others who might understand my revelations. I wanted to build connections with those around me, to share the love and hope I had encountered during my near-death experience. I took cautious steps, recounting my journey to a few trusted colleagues and friends who had also shown signs of questioning the status quo. Each connection I fostered felt like a thread weaving a tapestry of awakening, bridging the gaps of fear that had long kept us apart. As we began to gather in quiet spaces, exchanging stories of our spiritual battles, I felt the weight of our shared journey, one that called for both courage and vulnerability. Would we be able to inspire others to join us in this quest for truth? Or would we remain alone in our struggle against the shadows? The answers lingered in the air, a tantalizing mix of hope and uncertainty propelling me forward into the unknown. As a police detective in my 30s, I projected an image of authority and confidence to those around me. On the surface, I was respected and trusted, having earned my place in a community steeped in tradition and expectation. But beneath that exterior, I grappled with a profound feeling of emptiness. Each day, as I walked the streets patrolling the neighborhood, a quiet turmoil brewed within me. I felt trapped in a world that valued obedience over genuine faith, a world where questioning the status quo was seen as a threat to the very fabric of our society. The internal conflict intensified as I confronted the rigidity of the beliefs I had long accepted without question. Despite my position, I wondered if I was really serving the people or merely maintaining the illusion of security. Each interrogative encounter revealed a dichotomy. The truth was often buried under layers of fear and cultural conditioning. It was in those moments of quiet reflection, away from the bustle of city life, that I felt a stirring sense of discontentment. I needed something more, a connection that transcended the expectations laid upon me. One fateful day during an interrogation, I experienced a jarring shift in my consciousness. As I pushed for answers from a suspect, darkness suddenly enveloped the room, drowning out the flickering fluorescent lights. I felt a disconnect, as if I had been pulled from my body and into the void. In that darkness, a blinding light pierced through, revealing the unmistakable figure of Jesus. His presence was overwhelming, and as he gazed into my eyes, a wave of love and understanding washed over me. "I see you," he said softly, and in that moment, I felt everything I had buried come to the surface. Jesus began to unveil profound revelations, sharing truths about the hidden agendas woven into our society. I saw how the elite manipulated fear and division, perpetuating a cycle that kept the masses in check. The revelation was jarring. I witnessed how my community, along with countless others, remained shackled by deception. I understood that the spiritual war was not just an internal struggle, but a battle playing out on the broader stage of humanity. The revelations about love and unity illuminated the dark crevices of existence, making it clear that we were being deceived, driven apart by those who sought power over compassion. When I awoke from that extraordinary experience, the weight of my epiphany felt both liberating and burdensome. I was filled with an urgent desire to share this truth, to break free from the chains of expectation that had held me captive for so long. The moment I stepped back into my role as a detective, everything felt different. The walls around me seemed to pulse with the weight of unspoken truths. I longed to advocate for love and connection, but I was engulfed by the fear of how my colleagues would respond to this awakening. Would they see my revelations as a threat? Could I challenge the authority of the systems that brought us together in the first place? As I became more aware of the deception surrounding me, I felt compelled to seek others who might share my newfound understanding. I began to explore the possibility of forming connections with those who had also experienced an awakening. My heart raced with the thought of gathering kindred spirits willing to confront the societal and spiritual barriers we faced. But alongside that excitement came a deep-seated anxiety. Could I really drum up the courage to step out and share this truth when I was still navigating the unknown? I knew my path was fraught with risks, yet the promise of liberation and the potential to inspire others beckoned me forward, urging me to embrace this calling wholeheartedly, despite the uncertainty looming on the horizon. In moments of solitude, the spiritual void became increasingly apparent to me during my prayers. As a police detective, I had dedicated my life to serving others, yet behind the badge and beneath the weight of responsibility, I battled a deep-seated discontent. Each evening, as I knelt in prayer, seeking guidance and strength, I felt the familiar emptiness creep in, nagging at my conscience. I recited verses diligently, but instead of solace, I was met with silence, a deafening void that made me question the authenticity of my faith. It was as if the deeper connections I craved remained just out of reach, hidden behind a veil I couldn't lift. I began to have recurring dreams that left me both terrified and fascinated. In these dreams, a luminous figure would call my name with a voice so gentle yet powerful that it resonated through my very being. Each time, I would awaken sweating, heart racing, with the image of Jesus glowing in my mind. Though I had been raised with the teachings of the Quran, the figure of Jesus was new territory for me, an experience that both intrigued and scared me, igniting a series of questions that I felt I couldn't voice. Why was this figure appearing in my dreams? What was he trying to tell me? The more I pondered, the more disconnected I felt from my surroundings and the traditions I had followed for so long. As the dreams persisted, the internal conflict I faced grew more intense. I started grappling with these unexpressed questions, wondering if my devotion had been misguided, or if I had been purposefully blind to a deeper truth. Was I, a dedicated follower of Islam, really experiencing a call from Jesus? I felt as if I was being pulled toward an awakening that challenged the very fabric of my beliefs. One moment I was steeped in the comforts of religious familiarity, and the next, I found myself standing on the precipice of a spiritual cliff, questioning everything I had ever known. It was during one particularly haunting night, following a dream where Jesus stood before me, arms outstretched, that I finally began to grasp the implications of what I was being shown. He revealed a world filled with deception, a hidden agenda orchestrated by the elite who manipulated religion for their gain. I saw glimpses of how the elite sow division and perpetuate war among us, keeping people in a cycle of fear and misunderstanding. The urgency of his message was clear. Humanity's true struggle was not simply against one another, but against the systems that sought to control and oppress us all. I awoke that night with a profound understanding of the spiritual war that was playing out, not only in my life but in the world around me. This transformative experience stirred a fire within my soul, awakening a desire to seek out the truth, no matter the cost. I knew I needed to confront the uncomfortable reality of my feelings and embark on a journey that would lead me away from the familiar. The fear of rejection by my family and community loomed large, but the temptation to ignore this calling faded with each passing day. I longed for the opportunity to share the revelations I had received, to enlighten others who may also be trapped in cycles of deception. As I prepared to navigate this new path, the questions lingered. Would I be brave enough to embrace my awakening? And could I find the strength to spread the truth that had revealed itself to me? The stakes were high, and each heartbeat felt like a step toward the unknown, compelling me to follow the light that Jesus had shown me, even when the darkness felt overwhelming. During an investigative assignment, I found myself in a situation I had never anticipated. It was a routine call, something that might have troubled another officer but felt mundane to me. A quick pursuit of a suspect through the narrow alleys of the city. But as I chased, adrenaline coursing through my veins, I paid little attention to the world around me. Suddenly, the unthinkable happened. I lost control and collided with a wall, slamming into the unforgiving surface with a force that sent everything spiraling into darkness. In that instant, I was detached from my body, enveloped in a void that swallowed all aspects of life. In the pitch blackness, I felt an unsettling sensation, a weight of emotions that pushed down on me, filling the space with despair. But then, amid the silence, a glowing light broke through the darkness. It was Jesus. His presence was breathtaking, radiating warmth and love in a way I had never known. As he approached, I felt a rush of familiarity and comfort, as if I were being welcomed home. When he called my name, it resonated with a deep understanding of who I was. The doubts and fears I had buried came to the surface, no longer shrouded by the image I presented to the world. Jesus began to unveil the truths I had long suppressed, exposing the spiritual war that raged within me. He revealed how the threads of deception wove through my beliefs and those of my community. I saw the hidden agenda of the elite, the manipulation that sought to control our thoughts and actions. The vision was both liberating and terrifying. I understood that the societal structures I had upheld were, in many ways tools of oppression. In this encounter with the divine, I was faced with the uncomfortable truth of my reality, a reality where honor and loyalty sometimes came at the expense of genuine faith. As the manifestations unfolded around me, I witnessed the anguish of countless souls trapped within the same cycle of ignorance and fear. I saw families torn apart by ideological divisions, neighbors turned into enemies, all orchestrated by a hidden hand that thrived on chaos and suffering. The urgency of Jesus' message rang clear. This deception could only be overcome with truth and love. Yet, the weight of responsibility settled heavily on my heart. What was I to do with this knowledge? The very foundation of my life, my career, and my community were built upon beliefs that now felt tenuous. When I finally awoke on the hospital gurney, filled with the penetrating light of the fluorescent bulbs above, the reality of what I had experienced lingered like a haunting echo. The accident had thrust me into a realm of awareness that I could no longer ignore. I was filled with a newfound sense of purpose, yet the road ahead felt fraught with challenges. Would I have the courage to share what I had learned with those around me? The fear of rejection loomed large, especially from my peers and my family, but the urgency of the truth compelled me to rise above it. My awakening was not just for me. It was a call to action, a means to share the light of Jesus and the compassion that transcends all barriers that faith had created. Upon returning to life, I found myself engulfed in a whirlwind of confusion and heartbreak. The moment I opened my eyes, I was met with the sterile brightness of the hospital room, but my mind was still reeling from the experience I had undergone. I had touched the divine, felt the love of Jesus enveloping me in a way that transcended everything I had ever known. Yet this awakening came laden with a heavy price. My family, upon learning of my transformation, viewed me as a traitor. The accusation stung more than I had ever anticipated, cutting deep into my heart. I had broken from the familial and cultural chains that had defined me, and now I stood alone in a world that felt foreign and hostile. The rejection from my loved ones weighed heavily on my spirit. I could still hear my father's voice, filled with disappointment, labeling me as lost. My mother's silent tears echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the love I had always thought would be my refuge. In a society deeply entrenched in tradition, the pressure to conform loomed like a dark cloud over my head. I felt isolation seep into my bones, a chill that left me shivering, even as I tried to embrace the new warmth of love that Jesus had offered. The whirlwind of emotions churned violently inside of me, guilt mixing with a fervent desire for truth and understanding. As days turned into weeks, I found solace in prayer, reaching out to Jesus in my moments of despair. "What do I do now?" I would whisper into the silence of my room, burdened by the choice I had made. Every prayer felt like a lifeline, drawing me closer to the clarity I so desperately sought. In the quiet moments, I began to understand that my experience wasn't just a personal revelation. It was a calling to stand against the hidden agendas manipulating our lives. I began to grasp how the elite used religious systems to keep communities in fear. How the spiritual war we fought was not solely an internal struggle, but a battle waged against deception on a societal level. Driven by the fire of this revelation, I sought to make sense of what I could do with the newfound truth pulsing in my heart. I began to reach out to others who felt confined by societal norms, those who found themselves questioning their beliefs. Each conversation was a mixture of trepidation and exhilaration as I shared my experiences. I found a few trusted friends who were willing to explore these ideas with me, and together we created a small circle of support. In that space, The fear of rejection began to dissipate, replaced by the courage to confront the societal pressures that kept us bound. The transformative power of our dialogues ignited something within me. I understood that it was time to speak out more boldly, to share my testimony beyond our small group. I felt a sense of urgency to spread the truth about Jesus, the one who had removed the chains that once held me. My heart raced at the thought of gathering others who still felt trapped in their own spiritual wars, to stand together and declare a new reality. But even as I envisioned this future, the bitter fear of losing my family nagged at the edges of my mind. Would they ever understand? Or would my desire for spiritual freedom alienate me forever? The journey loomed ahead, filled with unknown risks and unanswered questions, but I felt ready to face whatever lay in store, propelled by the truth that had illuminated my path. In my clandestine quest for answers, I found myself drawn to the Bible, a text I had once viewed with skepticism but now sought with an urgency that felt almost primal. During quiet moments in my life as a police detective, I would steal away to read its pages, my heart racing with both fear and hope. In the shadows of my home, I peeled back the layers of doctrine that had surrounded me, hungry for the truth. I became consumed by the stories of transformation and revelations from others who had faced similar journeys, their testimonies echoing in my mind and igniting a fire within me. As I navigated this internal conflict, I could feel the weight of the spiritual war pressing heavily on my shoulders, pushing me further toward clarity. Each evening, I engaged in online discussions with converts to Christianity. Their experiences stirred something deep within me, and I felt a connection to their struggles. They spoke of a liberation that comes with embracing the truth, recounting encounters with Jesus that left them forever changed. It was both captivating and terrifying to witness how their journeys had liberated them from the chains of societal and religious oppression. As I absorbed their narratives, the revelation dawned on me. I was not alone in my doubts. We were all in search of something more profound, something that transcended the rigid confines of belief. Eventually, I discovered a discreet support group in my area, a small gathering where individuals like me could explore their faith without fear of judgment. It felt like stepping into a new world where we could share our truths openly, shedding the weight of secrecy that had accompanied us. Together, we discussed how the elite manipulate narratives, creating a hidden agenda that shapes our understanding of spirituality and society. I began to grasp the depth of the deceptions that surrounded us, how these forces thrive on division and discord, keeping us entangled in a cycle of fear. Every meeting bolstered my resolve to confront my own fears and the realities of my situation. I felt an immense urgency to share what I had learned with others, to awaken those who were still trapped in the shadows of deception. The stories we exchanged not only deepened our bonds, but urged me to find my voice. I envisioned standing before my community, sharing the truth about my encounters and the love of Jesus that transcends religion as a mere dogma, urging them to embrace a faith steeped in genuine connection and compassion. Yet the specter of losing everything familiar loomed large. My heart ached at the thought of alienation from my family, friends, and community. The risk felt monumental, but I understood that to remain silent would mean relinquishing the freedom I had fought so hard to reclaim. I had witnessed the truth and love that changed my life, and now I had a responsibility to shine a light in the darkness and confront the spiritual war head-on. As I stood on the brink of this brave new world, the questions echoed in my mind. Could I truly share my experiences and inspire change? Or would the fear of rejection shatter my resolve? Each step forward felt like a leap into the unknown, but deep down I knew I must embrace this calling, trusting that the journey ahead would lead to liberation for not just myself but for many others who yearned for awakening. Realizing that my experience had broader implications sent a surge of urgency through me. The encounter with Jesus during that fateful interrogation was not simply a moment of personal transformation. It was a divine commission that beckoned me to share my truth with the world. I felt as if a heavy fog had lifted from my mind, revealing a landscape fraught with deception. A spiritual war where many were still trapped in silence. I understood more clearly than ever that the awakening I had experienced was relevant not only to my life, but to those who walked similar paths, haunted by hidden agendas perpetuated by the elite, who manipulated our faith for control. Each day since that encounter, the desire to voice what I had learned grew stronger. I began to see my role not just as a police detective, but as a messenger of truth, one who could lead others away from societal shadows and misconceptions. Yet, as I contemplated sharing this truth, the risks became glaringly evident. I had seen how swiftly disapproval could turn to hostility in my community, and the fear of backlash loomed like a shadow over my resolve. Would my family welcome this new understanding, or would I lose them forever? As these questions swirled, I found both strength and trepidation in my mission. Through whispered conversations with trusted friends, I learned there were others who had experienced their own awakenings. We gathered covertly, sharing our stories, each one a testament to the profound change that came when facing the deception woven into our beliefs. As we talked, I could feel the air crackling with potential. It was as if we were at the cusp of a movement, one that could challenge the status quo. Each shared revelation felt like a pebble dropped into a still pond, sending ripples of hope across the surface of our lives. The realization struck me. Together, we could confront the hidden agendas that had manipulated so many, waking others to the truth that had illuminated our own paths. Encouraged by this new sense of community, I began crafting my message. I envisioned standing before groups, speaking of my journey, of how Jesus had shown me the path from darkness to light. I felt compelled to explain how the spiritual war raged, how those in power exploited the faithful to enforce fear and obedience. I imagined the urgency of our collective awakening rippling through the community, urging others to join us in seeking understanding rather than blindly following tradition. There was a drive within me, propelling me toward action, yet the weight of my responsibilities as a detective settled heavily on my shoulders. How could I balance this sacred calling with my profession, especially in a role that often demanded unwavering loyalty to the very systems I now questioned? The challenge of reconciling my two lives constantly tugged at my heart. Each day the tension grew as I prepared to confront the reality of my evolving faith. I sought out moments of quiet reflection, asking Jesus for guidance on how to navigate this treacherous path. With each prayer, I felt his presence guiding me, instilling the courage needed to stand firm against the tide of doubt and fear. There was an understanding deep within that every step I took toward my calling required faith, not just in Jesus, but in myself. As I embraced this journey, the questions that loomed remained unanswered, propelling me forward into an unfolding destiny. Would I find the strength to share the light I had received, or would I find myself ensnared in the very web of deception I hoped to dismantle? With conviction growing in my heart, I resolved to fight for the truth, prepared to face whatever lay ahead. In a powerful act of symbolism, I abandoned my former life, stepping away from the identity that had defined me for so long. The decision to leave was not taken lightly. As a police detective, I had built a reputation based on duty and honor. Yet, ever since my encounter with Jesus during that fateful interrogation, I felt a deep-seated urge for spiritual liberation pulling at my core. I embarked on a solitary journey through the arid expanse of the desert, a physical manifestation of my quest for both identity and faith. The vastness around me mirrored the inner turmoil I had been wrestling with. The fear, the pain, and the hope for a new beginning. As the sun beat down relentlessly, I reflected on the life I was leaving behind. The expectations of my family, the rigid adherence to tradition, and the internal conflicts I had faced now felt like distant memories. Yet I couldn't shake the weight of my past. Every step I took through the scorching sand was a reminder of the spiritual war one had fought within myself. I felt liberated, yet terrified, entering into a world where my old beliefs no longer held sway. The encounter with Jesus had yielded a revelation so powerful that it demanded transformation, but I was acutely aware of the risks involved in fully embracing this new identity. With each mile traversed, memories of my life as a detective flashed before me. Moments of devotion, camaraderie, and conflict. I remembered the encounters with suspects and victims alike. How the fabric of society seemed frayed at the edges. I began to understand how easily the elite manipulated these perceptions, using deception to maintain control over the populace. The realization settled heavily in my heart, a painful truth that I now could not ignore. In leaving my former life, I felt an urgency to share these insights, to awaken others still trapped in the cycle of misunderstanding and fear. It was during one of those moments of quiet reflection, surrounded by nothingness, that I felt the unmistakable presence of Jesus once more. His light bathed me in warmth, dispelling the lingering shadows of doubt. He urged me to share the truth I had discovered, the love and compassion that had been obscured by layers of societal deception. I felt as if I were being given a mission, infused with the strength I needed to face the challenges ahead. This wasn't just about my awakening, it was about igniting that flame in others. I had seen the bondage that fear and tradition could impose, and I yearned to help others break free from those chains. As the landscape shifted around me, I felt a renewed sense of purpose solidifying within my soul. I had committed to following a path imbued with love, compassion, and understanding. Each step through the desert was now a step toward fulfilling a divine calling. I would share the stories of my transformation, my encounters, and the truths revealed to me. The desert may have been barren, but in my awakening, it had become a vast sea of opportunity. I was prepared to confront the criticism, the rejection, and the battles that lay ahead. Would I find the courage to spread the message of Jesus and empower others to join me in this awakening? The answers loomed on the horizon, urging me to move forward, trusting that the journey ahead would lead me toward liberation and the ultimate truth I had sought for so long. Years later, I found myself in a new city, leading a ministry dedicated to helping others attain the spiritual freedom I had experienced. The journey from rejected Khatib to devoted missionary was not a path I had envisioned for myself, but after my encounter with Jesus, I felt I had been irrevocably changed. My life became focused on pouring my heart into this mission, filled with a resolve to share what I'd learned about the true nature of faith, love, and the profound deception that often shrouded religious practices. The ministry I established became a refuge for those like me, individuals searching for truth amidst confusion and spiritual bondage. Each person who walked through our doors carried their own burdens, stories etched deep in their hearts, often filled with pain and longing for acceptance. Many had faced rejection in their quest for a deeper faith, just as I had. As their stories unfolded, I saw reflections of my own struggles in their eyes. The fear of losing loved ones, the terrifying thought of stepping away from tradition, and the unyielding desire for connection to something greater than themselves. Yet, while I embraced this role of a guide and mentor, there was a gnawing ache within me, the yearning for reconciliation with my family. I could not shake the memories of their disappointment, especially my father's accusing glare, labeling me a traitor. I longed to explain to them the truths I had discovered, the revelations Jesus had shared with me about the hidden agendas of the elite, about how the spiritual war we face is often masked by societal norms and expectations. I felt deeply that my experience could shine a light on the chains that held them captive, if only I could find a way to bridge that gap. In those moments between sessions, as I prepared to lead our discussions, I couldn't help but reflect on the urgency of the mission ahead. The world outside was mired in conflict and division. Wars fought not just on battlefields, but within the hearts of humanity. The manipulation of fear and misunderstanding was rampant, and it seemed each day brought new challenges to overcome. I understood that addressing these issues was crucial, but I also knew it required tremendous courage to confront the realities many sought to ignore. I spent hours in prayer, seeking direction and strength from Jesus, firming up my resolve to confront my fears and speak up for the truth that I now knew. My commitment to this cause deepened every day. I sought to share the message of love and unity that Jesus had instilled in me, believing that this was the antidote to the fear and division sown by the elite. Every conversation turned into an opportunity for revelation. I began to witness transformation in those who were willing to listen. As they opened their hearts to the possibility of awakening, I saw flickers of hope ignite where once there had only been darkness. But even as I reached out to others, the thought of my family's reaction loomed large, a specter of doubt whispering in the back of my mind. Would they ever come to understand? Would I find the family connection I so desperately craved? Or was I destined to walk a path alone in pursuit of the truth? The answers eluded me, yet the call to action was clear, propelling me forward into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead in my journey of faith. The central moral message of my journey crystallized around a simple yet profound truth. True freedom and peace stem from a sincere pursuit of truth. I was a police detective, respected in my community, yet haunted by an emptiness that grew deeper with each passing day. I craved authenticity, a connection that transcended the traditions that had long defined my existence. The day I encountered Jesus during that harrowing interrogation was the catalyst for my awakening, a moment that shifted everything I thought I knew about faith, duty, and my place in this world. After my near-death experience, I was plunged into a journey of exploration that forced me to confront uncomfortable truths. I found myself questioning the hidden agendas surrounding me, particularly those propagated by the elite, who thrived on manipulation and division. It felt as though my eyes had been opened to the spiritual war that raged not only within my heart, but also within society. The realization came crashing down like a wave. The systems that wielded power over us often thrived on deception, blinding us to the truth of Jesus' message, one of love, unity, and redemption. As I began to delve deeper into this newfound truth, I felt a surge of responsibility to share my revelations with others. I sought out individuals who had traversed similar paths, each person carrying the weight of their own spiritual battles. Together we created a network of support, an informal family united by the desire for awakening. I listened to their stories, each recounting moments of struggle, fear, and eventually liberation. While sharing my own experiences, the bond between us intensified, revealing the power of collective understanding. The urgency to share our truths echoed in every conversation, fueling our passion to confront the societal deceptions we once accepted without question. Despite the warmth of this newfound community, the fear of the repercussions lingered. My family remained staunchly entrenched in their beliefs, and I knew that speaking out about my transformation could lead to confrontation, perhaps even rejection. The thought clung to my heart, a constant reminder of what I stood to lose. Yet, the love of Jesus had shown me a world beyond fear, a testament to the power of faith that transcended adherence to rigid traditions. I grappled with the stark contrast between the life I had lived and the one I wanted to embrace, recognizing that authentic faith must be rooted in courage, not compliance. The revelation of truth became a guiding light, compelling me to engage in dialogue about the significance of spiritual awakening. I began to initiate discussions with those willing to listen, hoping to unveil the chains that kept them bound. As I articulated my journey, I felt liberation washing over not just myself but also those who dared to confront the uncomfortable reality of their own faith. I sought to build bridges, hoping to transform the fear and division into understanding and compassion. The spiritual war we faced extended beyond ourselves, and as I continued to speak, I envisioned a ripple effect, that somehow my journey could inspire others to step into the light of truth, away from the shadows of deception that held them captive. The journey was uncertain, filled with challenges, but the call of Jesus echoed in my heart, urging me to forge ahead and embrace the awakening that had forever changed my life. As I close this chapter of my journey, I invite you to pause and reflect on your own path. What truths have you uncovered through your struggles, and how have these experiences shaped your understanding of faith? In moments of doubt or darkness, have you ever felt the pull of something greater, urging you toward the light? Perhaps you're standing on the edge of your own awakening. Just as I once was, the world is intertwined in a vast spiritual tapestry, with each of our stories intersecting in ways that could only be orchestrated by a divine purpose. It's easy to feel isolated amidst the chaos. But remember, we are all part of a greater narrative, a collective outcry for truth that transcends religious, cultural, and societal boundaries. Are you ready to step into the light and share your truth, or will you allow fear to keep you shrouded in silence? If my experience resonates with you, I encourage you to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell. Your support is crucial. It empowers us to shine light on the shadows, revealing spiritual battles that so many face. By joining this journey, together we can make an impact that ripples beyond ourselves. In our next video, we will dive into another profound story of transformation, featuring a seeker who awakened to the love of God in an unimaginable way. This isn't just a conversation, it's an invitation to be part of something extraordinary. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Hamza, and I'm grateful for your companionship in this exploration of truth and light. Remember this: each of us holds a spark that can illuminate the darkest places. Let's light the way together.